Hey everybody, it's Jordy McConnell here, head coach of Ottawa Swimming. Today I'm going to take you through the analysis list that I use when looking at swimmers. Now I don't check each box as I go down. As you get more experience as a swim coach, you get the instincts to just find the things that stand out to you, things that are wrong. But here is a list of the most common issues that we have with novice and intermediate swimmers, even some advanced swimmers. And buckle your seatbelts because this is the least spectacular PowerPoint presentation you'll ever see in your life. First of all, the kick. I prioritize the kick at the top because if it is a deleterious kick, then it's going to cause an anchor and you're not going to be able to have that engine back there to propel you through drills and such. So number one is kicking from the knee. A bicycle kick, somebody that's very new swimming, that's quite typical. Next is simply the width. Now the width can happen as a splaying type of action as a result of a crossover, or just a lazy movement pattern, not streamlined back there. The range of motion of the kick as well sort of relates to the fourth point as well, which is a tempo relative to the distance. So if we're sprinting 50 meters, then we want a bigger range of motion and we're working really hard. But if we're swimming 1500, the tempo is going to be much more relaxed and the range of motion less as well. Now, one of the greatest issues that you'll have with swimmers is ankle mobility. And if their ankle if they're not able to point their toe very much, if that's as far as they can go, then that's going to be a big challenge for them. That's where fins can really come in. So something that coaches need to pay attention to. Next on the priority list is head position. So we want to get that head and the crown of the head into the water to create a bow wave, and after that bow wave there will be a trough. So we want to be breathing out of that trough. So the cue that I use for swimmers is that they should see a little water washing over their bottom goggle. If that bottom goggle's in the water, in the trough, then we know we have a good head position. When they are exhaling, the head needs to be straight down. There are some exceptions to that, depending on the individual build of the swimmer and their dynamics in the water, but the default for swimmers when they're starting is to have that midline head position in the water, so looking straight down. When they do turn to breathe, we were talking about the bottom goggle, we don't want them to look back, because if they look back when they're breathing, then it's going to take them off the center line. They're going to end up snaking a little bit. A final thing to look for, and this is tricky with swimmers, is a balanced breathing cycle. New swimmers can sometimes get in the habit of breathing too deeply when they don't have to breathe deeply. Their exertion level is low, but they're really breathing in and out and deeply, and it almost causes hyperventilation. So you need to work with a swimmer and help them to develop a breathing cycle that's appropriate to the exertion level. Relaxation is one of the big keys to that. Entry and extension. This is the issue that has the broadest appearance in ability levels, from new swimmers to advanced swimmers. Entry and extension, if an advanced swimmer has an issue, typically it's their entry and extension. First of all, we're looking at crossover. We do not want to cross over. We want to enter straight out from the shoulder. Some swimmers will, let's see if I can show you this here. Some swimmers will be super keen, so they'll get that arm up and they'll reach, but then they overreach, and it results in their lats curving, their whole torso curving, and that's where the snaking comes from, where the crossover comes from, is they're just being overly keen to reach, but they're reaching across instead of in a straight line. So those types of people, we have to hold them back. We have to say, don't reach quite as far initially to overcompensate. In terms of the entry point, we're looking for an entry point that is half of the full arm's length, entering, creating that hole, and extending underwater. One of the major reasons for that is we want to lose the air off the hand before we start to pull. And there is a habit among some swimmers that they will enter and they'll go straight into a high catch instead of entering and extending. So we want to make sure that we get that extension. Now, a very, very common issue, and I'm going to show you this side on here, is what I call the downslope. So it's very common that swimmers will extend and then their hand will rock up. They love to feel that stability, but that stability is also drag. So we want them to come in and extend, so it's a slight downslope. The fingers are slightly below the wrist, which is slightly below the elbow, which is slightly below the shoulder. Also, we want all fingers at once on the entry. So it's not uncommon that people will come in thumb down. That results in a snaking S type of stroke. And another idiosyncrasy that some swimmers have at different points in their stroke is they open their fingers too much. So we want to have either a relaxed hand, first of all, thumb out, and maybe my preference for most swimmers is just a relaxed hand position with just small gaps between the fingers, small enough that turbulence will prevent water from really being lost. Rotation. So we want to make sure that swimmers are rotating from shoulder to shoulder. It's very common that new swimmers don't rotate at all or barely. Typically, a swimmer will rotate when they need to breathe and not when their head is into the water. So we want to make sure that we have a nice rotation, but not excessive rotation. Excessive rotation can result from a range of motion limitation in the neck and shoulders, where the person's turning to breathe and they're not there, so they keep rotating. And again, we want even rotation. The pull. It's not uncommon for swimmers to pull across the midline of their body. We want them to think about pulling towards the same side hip, and almost as they get to that hip, then they rotate and that hip rotates out of the way. The hand depth, EVF, the third point is early vertical forearm. So these things are connected. If we're sprinting, a deeper arm pull is fine. Not ideal, but when we're swimming for endurance, we want to definitely go with that early vertical forearm. So if I step back and show you, we're going to enter and we're going to create that early vertical forearm there. That's as opposed to having your hand deep, like a windmill type of pull. That's going to fatigue the shoulders very quickly. You're also going to have less pull surface. When we get that early vertical forearm, we're going to be pulling with the forearm as well as the hand, and this position will also pass on the muscular load to the big muscles of the back as well. Finally, on pull, this is more an advanced tip, is the tempo change from the catch to the pull. So as you come in and you extend, we go into the catch. It's the early vertical forearm, or the catch phase, is slightly slower than the pull. So we want to catch the water and then accelerate. All right, it's a very, very subtle change in speed, but we don't want to pull until we have that catch, effective catch, complete. Stroke timing is tricky. Some swimmers will get stuck into a catch-up. I'm very reticent to use catch-up drill as a coach because people get locked into it. So catch-up is when both hands are beside each other at the front. So the closest we want to be is here, right? As the thumb is passing the head, we want that catch here to take place. So you want to avoid the catch up. The next thing is, it's very common when we're breathing here for this catch to happen too early, because people want to stabilize themselves, so they push down and go into their catch too early. So we want to keep the head down, we want to get out there, and then we want to catch when the timing is right and we're coming back with the other arm. So turning the catch should initiate the rotation. Recovery. What you do above the water is much less important than what you do in the water. However, if you do a hook shot recovery with a big straight vertical arm, then you're activating a lot of shoulder muscles, and we want them to rest. So ideally, we want elbow high, hand low as it comes forward. The width is not super important. You'll see some swimmers that go nice and linear. That's great, but if you're in a wetsuit, that could be a problem. So a little bit of semicircle is fine. This is a big factor. A big influencer of recovery is shoulder mobility. So people that have tight shoulders won't be able to get in this position. That elbow will be low, they'll finish, and they'll lead with the hand forward. There's not a lot you can do about that. So working on mobility, increasing mobility, working on the movement pattern as well. Elbow high, hand low, ideally. So that's it. So that's our analysis list. In the comment section of this video, there'll be a link to a PDF of the list that you can print off for yourself. I'm Jordy McConnell from Ottawa Swimming.